We're talking with Dr. Ira Byock, director of the Palliative Care Program at Dartmouth-Hitchcock, about opening the conversation about end-of-life planning.
I'm often in the position, and our team is often in the position of helping people to have these difficult, awkward, sensitive conversations. And, there's no easy way to do it. There are always going to be emotionally challenging conversations. But because we love one another, it really is important at some point to find out what people want or don't want, what they desire and what they fear as they think about the last part of life. We're raised in a society that really doesn't want to think about it. If that phrase, "I don't want to think about it," really captures the American mindset around illness, dying, caregiving, death, and grief. And yet those are normal parts of human life. They're inevitable parts of human life, really. So we have to get over our internal resistance to having these conversations. And each family will have its own culture and sort of style. But I think it's important at some point to kind of break the shell of denial and talk about this. So if I'm the son and my father is seriously ill, I might say, "Dad, I know you're going for treatment and I'm in support and really want to support you in every way to get through this treatment. But I got to tell you, I'm also worried about you. I've been on the net, I've looked up the statistics, and very few people with cancer that's, lung cancer that's already spread to their bones survive for more than 2 or 3 years. And as hard as it is to think about losing you, because I love you so much, I really want to make sure that when and if the time comes that you're facing the end of life, that we do this the way you'd want it done." So I really want to know what matters to you when you think about that, and how do you see the last days of your life playing out in a way that would be most consistent with your wishes. One of the reasons that I frankly give interviews and I write and I speak, around the country, is to give people an excuse. I often will say to audiences, tonight is the conversation opener. From this time forth, you'll be able to say, I saw this guy give a talk, and he says it's really important for us to talk to one another about what our wishes would be through the end of life. Just that. I saw this guy give a talk. That's enough. If all we've done tonight is to give you an excuse or an opening to have this difficult conversation, well, my time here will have been well spent. And so, I often will just start in that way.
I'm sure in the work that you do, you've seen both sides of this. You've seen families who came into an experience being well prepared, and families who came into an experience being completely unprepared. Could you talk about what can happen in both of those scenarios, or what you've seen that happens?
Having someone you love being so seriously ill that they're facing the end of life is always upsetting, always feels, like people have lost control. Indeed, we have lost control because nature is really asserting itself. I often think about mortality as the force majeure, the thing you cannot stop, the immovable or unstoppable force. And simply having preparation allows people a little bit more sense of control, or a little bit less loss of control, because they know what they want or what their loved one wants. That's really valuable. I think that when people haven't had the conversation, there is this sense of free-floating anxiety. I'm not ready. We're not ready. This can't be happening. There is so often a surreality, this sense that this isn't real. How could this possibly be happening? That I think, frankly, is part of the experience in the modern world, at least, of having somebody so seriously ill that the doctors are saying there's not much we can really offer to save or prolong your loved one's life. Again, at least knowing what your mother or father or spouse would want or would have said he or she would want in this circumstance provides a little bit of guidance and perhaps diminishes the burden just a hair. What you also need then is a good doctor who can be a partner with you in providing the best care possible to the person you love.
Have you found that people have a hesitation to talk about this before someone is seriously ill?
Before someone is seriously ill, I think the general mindset in America is, I don't want to think about it. You know, there's a superstition. I mean, superstition is alive and well in the 21st century. And it happens before, it's active before people become ill, but once somebody becomes ill, your mother or father gets, you know, a heart attack or gets a diagnosis of, you know, Alzheimer's disease or cancer, and they talk about the end of life, the first thing people say often is, oh, don't talk about that. Oh, Mom, don't talk like that. You're going to get better. Or the doctor said, yeah, that's going to, at some point it's going to be a problem, but that's not for years, Mom. Don't talk like that. It's almost as if talking about it makes it real. If we talk about it, it's going to happen. And my experience, unfortunately, is that as disease progresses, sometimes it doesn't get easier to talk about. Sometimes it actually gets harder because the loyalty of we promised we were only going to talk about the positive stuff. That's a common pact that people enter. We promise we're only going to talk hopeful. We're only going to talk positive. Well, at some point as disease progresses, it then becomes ever more disloyal to bring up the obvious fact that somebody is getting more seriously ill. And then people start walking around the elephant in the room. And why that, I think, is so poignantly painful is because that elephant then divides the people who love one another from one another. Because loyalty says we can't talk about it, so we got to walk around this big pachydermal secret that we both know is there.
And it probably also separates the person who is dying or who's very sick from the family.
When I said before, the thing I've learned that's most important, if you've got a serious illness, the most basic strategy that I know is the way to go through this is together. Because you're going to go through it anyway. You're both going through it. There's no way that if you have somebody you love who's seriously ill, that you're not going through the illness. And if you're the one who's ill, the people who love you are going through it with you. They will feel this pain. People tell me, oh, I don't want to be a burden on my family. One of the things I say back is, don't worry, you already are. It's their pain too. They already own this pain. You can't fix that. That's part of how we're connected to one another. That's a good thing that we matter most to one another. The best thing you can do is go through it together and support one another and share that burden. And that may seem like, oh, I wouldn't want to do that, but that's the healthiest way that I know of to go through this unwanted, difficult time of life. So set the superstition aside. It really isn't real. It doesn't make it happen more quickly. It just is there. You know, set the superstition aside. Have the conversation. I think you'll find in the vast majority of people in my professional life, but also in my personal life, once you start the conversation, the defenses tend to fall. And one finds that the conversation actually is really important and, frankly, feels good to both people.
We've talked about the importance of a family being together as a loved one goes through a serious illness. Now, talking about the person who is ill, what have you found that they want for their family members?
Well, frankly, in a very basic, fundamental way, when we are seriously ill or someone we love is seriously ill, we all want the best care possible. I use that phrase a lot in talking with patients and their families. I say my commitment is to provide the very best care possible to you and your loved one through the course of illness. But what that means to you may be different from what it means to another person. One size does not fit all. Because illness affects not only our physical well-being, but our personal, emotional, social, spiritual well-being, it really is particular to who you are and to your family is, your culture, your family values, what you hope for, what you fear. So providing the best care possible provides almost a vessel around which to have the conversation. That phrase allows me to pour meaning into what it means for you. And that provides a framework going forward that I can revisit during future visits. Well, now that the disease has progressed despite the first round of treatments, what's the best care look like for you now? I just completed a book called The Best Care Possible, which I think is pertinent because, again, that's what we all want. And hopefully the stories in the book and the discussion will allow people to clarify for themselves what they think they would want and their family would want at a future time when they might be struggling with some of these same difficult circumstances that the people I write about have struggled with. And we can find out that through the best care possible, not only may we live longer, but we may be able to live well, to support one another, and when that time comes, to frankly die well. Not just right, correctly, but more importantly, to die with a sense of well-being for ourselves and those we love. That, I think, is the great challenge that we have in healthcare, but beyond healthcare as a society and culture. Can we support people to live fully and die well?
This Healthy Highlight is brought to you by Dartmouth-Hitchcock and Ledyard National Bank, working together with our community partners to improve your well-being.